Welcome into the show, everyone. My guest today has rum in his blood. Literally. He bears the most famous surname in the spirits world, but he has chosen to stake his claim with the oldest, most mysterious, and perhaps one of the most respected names in Puerto Rican rum. He's the sales and marketing director of Ron de Barrito, the guardians of the famous Hacienda Santa Ana, and the creators of the what many call the cognac of the Caribbean. From the secrets of the Freedom Barrel to the truth about the legendary 3-star blend, please welcome Eduardo J. Bacardi. Welcome in, Eduardo. How are you?
Hi, Arthur. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Great to have you, man. I was very excited to see you as one of the potential guests, thanks to Laura, of course, and putting us together. So little secret, I have tried your brand well before I knew I ever even had you on the show or even thought about interviewing you. Very big fan of everything you do. So for those at home, go ahead and introduce yourself, where you're from and what you do.
Yeah, great. So I'm Eduardo. I live down here in beautiful Puerto Rico. I work here at the Hacienda Santa Ana, like Arthur mentioned, working with Ron del Barrito. We have titles here, but we're small enough that we kind of do a little bit of everything. So I help out with what is sales strategy, distributor management, marketing. We have our visitor center here, which we'll talk a little bit about. And yeah, we've been with the brand for almost 10 years now, growing at a pretty quick pace. And like we like to call it, it's a 150-year-old startup that we're just getting started with, even though it has over, a decade and a half of history. So,
hey, it's Monday. It's still, we're still getting to the run of it. So 100-year startup. That is the first I've ever heard this, but that makes a lot of sense, right? You guys have kind of developed through the scene in a very crowded market and crowded industry, but I love your product. Obviously, we already talked about it. Your name kind of carries a lot of weight. Was rum and the spirit industry always something in your future, like from the get, or was this something you're like, begrudgingly, I'll follow in these footsteps? How did you end up in this path?
Well, look, you're right. It's always been a part of my past, whether I wanted to or not. I come from a big rum-making family, which a lot of people may have heard of. And again, I'm a 6th-generation family member of the Bacardi family. And, it was always going to be in my future, I felt.
Yeah, man. The brand is, I'd like to call it like a cult favorite when I've mentioned to a couple of people. Is that how you kind of see the brand and everything else that's kind of the flavor profiles and everything for those who've never tried it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of it goes back to the history of when Barrilito started. So Pedro Fernandez, who started the brand back in 1880, before coming back to the Hacienda, he was living and studying over in Paris, where he was studying chemical engineering, learning about different techniques and different spirits that they had over there at the time, in particular, cognac, as you mentioned. And he brought that back with him to Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico, predominantly a sugarcane market. He started tinkering around with some of that. And before you know it, he had a rum blend, which he originally, believe it or not, thought of as cognac and labeled it as cognac until categorically enough, he realized it was rum. And so a lot of those influences that we see in our process still to this day tie back to those, 1800s roots, a lot of which, they're impossible to come by nowadays in modern day spirits. So something that people try for the first time and their initial reaction is, wait a minute.
Yeah. You mentioned it real briefly about the secret sauce for your production, right? So what makes your brand different is maceration versus distilling. I'll allow you to kind of elaborate on that, as well as the aging process. Do you mind giving us more information?
Yeah, of course. So again, start to finish, our process is unique, and we'll start with the distillation. And all of our distillation is conducted by our master blender and the team. They have very specific parameters that they look for in terms of getting that initial distillate. And then we get into what we call our transformation process, which just a few more unique indicators of what our brand is. And it starts with that maceration. Maceration is quite literally an ancient technique. And I don't want to disrespect the 1800s, but definitely ancient for our times, in the sense of very similar to like a botanical process. But in this sense, they would take the base distillate and add it to different tanks. So tanks meaning wooden tanks, so similar to aging. And in each of these wooden tanks, they would add a specific fruit, a specific, I want to call it a spice, different ingredients from all over the world.
It's a very painstaking process, it sounds like, but it shows through in the product for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was about to touch on that too, especially when we started talking about the difference in the rums. For anyone who has seen those rums and actually the background of your image, there's a star system. in kind of navigating that, do you mind kind of speaking to what the differences are between the 2-star, 3-star, 4 and 5 when you and what that process and prioritization of how you want that finish to end up? I know that was a lot of question, but yeah.
No, I got it. Follow.
Right.
So yeah, here at Barrilito, we have 4 rums, which we call the stars. The first is the 2 stars. That's our youngest blend. That is rums blended between 3 up to 5 years aged. And this is our youngest rum overall. This is a rum that, believe it or not, was born due to prohibition. And after prohibition was repealed and the Fernandez family could fortunately get back into the rum making world after already having been in it for 50 years, they decided to release a younger rum and one that could enter the market a little bit quicker, enter in what was that cocktail boom that was going on at the time. So the 2 stars has a lot more of those fruity notes that you might pick up from, for example, maceration.
That is wild. Did you say 30-year rum?
Oh, yeah. If I walk you through some of our warehouses, you'll have to double take at the year. Wait a minute. You do the mental math. Not to make us feel old, but the 80s were 40 years ago.
Let's not do that. But I do live in Florida. So if you ever need someone to just try stuff out, you let me know. I could fly to Puerto Rico pretty easily.
Come on down.
So with all this wide variety, I'm going to assume that your favorite sipper is the 3-star, correct?
Depends on the day, but 3-star is certainly at the top of my list, right now and in the minds of a lot of people here, especially in Puerto Rico.
I want to circle back a little bit about the 30-year-old rum that you have. I know that you spoke about the selection 30-year-old. In the Caribbean heat, I'm assuming that angel share and that loss is high. How much rum is actually left in a normal sized barrel is this when you finally crack it open?
Yeah, that's a great observation. And it is very much true. The Caribbean heat and humidity is a real factor. It makes a big difference. And just in the first few years, so when you look at, for example, 3 stars, which takes 6-year-old rum as the youngest, getting to 6 years, you can lose almost 35% of what goes into that barrel.
Obviously, this is for the master distiller, but I don't know if you're aware, if they found a way to kind of have a technique to maintain that value and stuff.
It's tricky. There's certain factors that are in our control. For example, all these, and I can say these barrels that do reach past 25 years and have rum in it that can be used or can be utilized in a blend, they're all on the lower racks. So as close to the ground as possible, a little bit less humid, definitely less heat. And it is extremely noticeable when it comes to opening up these barrels and seeing how much is left, how has it evolved. So that's one factor we can control. We're not putting AC in our warehouses. We're not, bubble wrapping these barrels. So other than that, it's time. And like I mentioned, most of these barrels that reach these ages, on a good day, they'll have 30% left when we open them up.
Earlier, you talked about the distillate, so the base spirit. I like to joke about this because when I did the research, some of it being from Dominican Republic. So
the sugarcane industry in Puerto Rico, unfortunately, has been one of those that has ceased to continue here. Unfortunately, there's a lot of factors that have led to that. Originally, the Fernandez family, again, I mentioned it, they had one of the largest sugarcane estates on the island, and they were able to be extremely self-sufficient. They distilled, they did everything here on site. But as that industry went away, they started producing it off-site. So the next closest island here, which is the Dominican.
I like that. I love the fact that the family dynamic has lent itself to being a successful business, right? That's important, having people that are as passionate about it as you are.
Look, that's the family that I was raised in. That's what, has made me a 6th generation family member of a rum producing family. You have to work together. You have to work with family. You have to respect the roots and know where you came from to know where you're going. Okay,
awesome. Yeah. To be honest, that's one of the things that have always attracted to me to these distilleries. I've gone to breweries, all that, just tasting and getting to try things out. I like the fact that you throw in the mixology experience at the end, because even though the rum is a sipper rum, a lot of people do enjoy a cocktail. So that gives people an idea of what you could do with it and not just closed to only, hey, this is all I could do. A daiquiri and a pina colada, like you said. So opens up that layer of like ideas so you can mess with them.
We see it all the time. We have a bar here, and some of the best mixologists in Puerto Rico, run our bar, and they do an amazing job, and they're just constantly championing the brand and creating some amazing drinks. So the good part of my job is every Friday I get to go do some R&D down there.
So I know you have a lot of stuff, exciting things going on. A couple of things I do want to ask before we even get close to signing off, to my favorite questions to ask guests, right? if you could enjoy your 5-star with anyone alive or dead, who would it be?
That is a great question, and the first time I've been asked.
Really?
Can I give you 2 answers?
Go ahead.
All right, I got it out of you. I would have it with Pedro Fernandez, so the gentleman who started this brand, and I've been fortunate enough to meet his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren, that I've gotten to work with. But I never got to meet him, of course. And he's the one who started this. I would love to see what he thinks of where this brand is, the reception it's received, and how people have come to love it even 150 years later. So I can't name many brands that have, even 100 years of history that continue to be doing the same thing today. So getting 2 of those founders together, with me, I'd be more than honored. I probably wouldn't even do talking. I would just listen.
All right. My last question, this is one of my favorites, is what is your deathbed cocktail? It doesn't have to involve your rum.
That is a good question. Whatever gives me another 10 years of life, give it to me. No, in all seriousness, I honestly, this is gonna ruffle some feathers here, but I'm gonna say the 4 stars on the rocks. I say it's going to ruffle feathers because it's not available in the US. It's not available many places. You can only get it here in the visitor center. This is not a sales pitch, and this is not a hashtag ad.
How are you going to hurt me with this?
It's just such a good product. I mean, we mentioned of like that age range of when those rums just peak. And to me, the 4 stars around that 20-year mark, I mean, there's nothing better. It's just, you have one of those and you're never looking back.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. Trust me, and your hard work is noticed. And also the rep that we saw, his name is William. He is a good dude. So definitely represented your brand very well. So shout out to him. Well, everyone at home, if you want to continue supporting, make sure I will drop their in the show notes to make sure, and we'll tag them in the cocktails that we'll be making over the next couple of weeks. If you guys like their product, make sure to tag them. If you go ahead and pour a sip of it. Like, subscribe, follow us at Last Call with Arthur. Looking forward to trying out these spirits. You already heard them. It's going to be a signed bottle, so mind your business. I'll tell you guys how that is. But shout out to everyone at home. Drink safe, drink responsibly, and enjoy some spirits with some friends and make some great memories. Eduardo, thank you again and take care.